Welcome back to the channel, and a warm welcome to all our new viewers joining us today. If you're drawn to deeply research true crime stories that peel back the layers of time, uncover overlooked evidence, and explore the shadows of human psyche, you're in the right place. Today, we begin a chilling journey into a case that remained unsolved for over 4 decades. The 1983 disappearance of Teresa Peroni. If you appreciate content that goes beyond the headlines, don't forget to like, comment your theories below, and subscribe for more riveting cold case investigations. On the night of July 3rd, 1983, 27-year-old Teresa Peroni left a 4th of July party in the small Oregon town of Selma. She was last seen walking into the woods with her boyfriend, Mark Sanfratello. She was never seen alive again. Her sudden disappearance baffled law enforcement. There was no note, no car, no body, just silence. For years, Teresa's family fought to keep her name alive while the case grew cold. And yet, nearly 42 years later, that same silence was shattered by a single piece of evidence: a human skull. What really happened to Teresa that night? Who was Mark Sanfratello? And why did it take over 4 decades for justice to catch up? Teresa Peroni wasn't a name you'd find in national headlines in the 1980s. She wasn't rich, she wasn't famous, but she was, by all accounts, a woman trying to rebuild her life after a difficult divorce. Friends and family describe her as thoughtful, quiet, and spiritual. She'd recently joined a church and was said to be seeking a fresh start. She had started dating Mark Sanfratello, a man whose charm masked a far more sinister character. Sanfratello was older, street smart, and had a volatile history. To those close to Teresa, there were red flags. But in a world before widespread domestic abuse awareness or digital tracking, Teresa's cries for help were muted by isolation. According to multiple reports, Teresa attended a casual 4th of July party in Selma, Oregon, with Mark. Witnesses recalled seeing the couple argue earlier that evening. What happened next remains unclear. Teresa was last seen walking into a wooded area with Mark. The next morning, she was gone. No calls, no notes. Her car was untouched. What would you do if someone close to you vanished without a trace? Drop your thoughts below. We read every comment. Sanfratello claimed Teresa simply ran off. He told police she wanted to be alone, to clear her head. But his story lacked consistency, and police quietly suspected him. According to a 2025 article in People, early investigators felt something was off but lacked sufficient evidence. Searches of the wooded area yielded no body, no personal items, and no witnesses who had seen her after that night. Sanfratello moved on with his life, and Teresa became just another missing person. In 1997, 14 years after Teresa disappeared, a landowner discovered a human skull on their rural property not far from where Teresa was last seen. It was weathered, stripped by time and the elements. No other bones were found. The skull went unidentified and into storage. The case remained cold. Only in 2024, over 2 decades later, did forensic technology advance enough to extract DNA. With help from the University of North Texas, the skull was finally matched to Teresa Peroni. A ghost had a name again. Following the identification, the Josephine County Sheriff's Office reopened the case in February 2024. With fresh eyes, they re-examined decades-old evidence and began re-interviewing witnesses. Detectives discovered inconsistencies in Sanfratello's original story. Meanwhile, his past, once buried, came under the microscope. Sanfratello had a history of violence. In 1985, he was convicted of attempted murder and burglary. Later, in 2000, he faced another conviction for theft. Yet, no one had tied him conclusively to Teresa's death until now. On June 27, 2025, a grand jury indicted him for murder. The next day, he was arrested in Chico, California, and is now awaiting extradition to Oregon. If you're captivated by real crime stories that uncover buried truths and dissect complex investigations, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and drop your thoughts and comments below. Your engagement helps us tell these important stories. For over 3 decades, Teresa Peroni's case remained dormant. There were no arrests, no clear evidence, just silence and pain. But in 2016, a routine review of unsolved cases in Pennsylvania's Allegheny County brought new eyes and a fresh perspective to a file that had long collected dust. It began with a single question. Why had no one looked harder at the man who was last seen with her alive? That man was Joseph Sanfratello, a name that had long since faded from public memory, but would soon become central to a reopened investigation. Joseph Sanfratello was not just Teresa's boyfriend. He was also, as it turned out, a man with a dangerous past. The 2016 investigators found a disturbing pattern when they pulled up his criminal record. In 1988, just 5 years after Teresa vanished, Sanfratello was convicted of assaulting another woman in upstate New York. The case had eerie parallels: a romantic relationship, manipulation, financial exploitation, and finally, sudden violence. What investigators also discovered was that Sanfratello had left Pennsylvania abruptly in late 1983, shortly after Teresa's disappearance. He had moved across multiple states, assuming different identities and evading scrutiny. For cold case detectives, it was no longer a matter of coincidence. It was a potential blueprint for murder. The cold case team tracked down former friends, co-workers, and neighbors of Teresa. One key witness, a former co-worker from the bank where Teresa worked, recalled a disturbing conversation. She told me he was controlling. She was scared. She said, "If anything happens to me, it's him." That testimony had never made it into the original police report. Another neighbor recounted seeing Sanfratello loading large garbage bags into his car days after Teresa vanished. Again, not in the original report. Investigators realized that the original investigation was not only shallow, it was negligent. At the time, domestic abuse wasn't taken seriously, and the signs of coercion and manipulation were overlooked. But now, decades later, those red flags were being re-examined under a different light. What do you think? Should cold cases like Teresa's be revisited even after 30 years? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories. Despite the years that had passed, technological advancements gave investigators new hope. DNA analysis had improved drastically. Forensic geolocation, behavioral profiling, all were brought into play. When police revisited Teresa's abandoned car, which had long since been auctioned off, they were unable to recover it, but her personal items, including an old address book and wallet, had been stored in evidence. Under ultraviolet light, a partial fingerprint was found on the inside of a wallet compartment, a match to Joseph Sanfratello. It wasn't enough to prove murder, but it connected him once again to her final known possessions. A forensic accountant also joined the team and discovered something chilling. Teresa's bank accounts had been drained just days before she disappeared. The withdrawals were made in person, and according to the teller's report, the man who accompanied Teresa wasn't identified at the time. But when shown a photo lineup in 2016, the retired teller identified Sanfratello. By 2018, the DA's office had enough circumstantial and testimonial evidence to pursue a rare move, an indictment in a no-body homicide case. In July of that year, Joseph Sanfratello was indicted for second-degree murder, concealment of a homicide, and financial exploitation. He pleaded not guilty, and the trial would become a media sensation, especially given how long it had taken to bring the case to court. But who really was Joseph Sanfratello? What secrets did he keep hidden from even his closest friends? And what did the courtroom reveal about what happened the day Teresa vanished? If you've been following the series, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop your thoughts in the comments, especially about how long justice took in this case. Your feedback fuels this channel and helps us bring these stories to light. When Joseph Sanfratello entered the Allegheny County courtroom in 2019, he wasn't just fighting for his innocence. He was fighting against decades of cold silence. Prosecutors were facing a massive hurdle. There was no body, no murder weapon, and no confession. But what they had was motive, a disturbing behavioral history, and the testimony of people who were finally ready to speak. The prosecution argued that Sanfratello had orchestrated Teresa's disappearance after systematically isolating and controlling her. The assistant DA, Kimberly Raines, laid out a chilling timeline: emotional manipulation, financial exploitation, and finally, murder. The most powerful moments of the trial came from those who had once feared speaking out. One of Teresa's closest friends, Lisa Connors, took the stand. She was terrified of Joe. She told me, "He wants my money. If I say no, I don't think I'll make it to Christmas." That was in October. Her voice cracked during testimony, but the courtroom was silent, riveted. Another former co-worker described how Teresa came to work with bruises, often hidden under scarves or long sleeves. She never reported the abuse, not unusual in the early 80s, when domestic violence was seldom prosecuted and victims often had nowhere to turn. But the defense pushed back hard. Sanfratello's attorney claimed that the evidence was purely circumstantial and that no one had seen him harm Teresa directly. He painted her as emotionally unstable, accusing her of leaving voluntarily, a tactic often used in cold cases involving women. That's when prosecutors dropped a bombshell. Would you trust testimony from people closest to a victim if it contradicts the only suspect story? Let us know in the comments. Your opinion helps bring justice back into the spotlight. In a stunning twist, the prosecution revealed that while awaiting trial, Sanfratello had confided in a cellmate, a man serving time for burglary named Ray Dillon. Dillon testified. "He told me he'd done something a long time ago. Said the girl just wouldn't shut up about her money. He said she'd never be found because he took care of it right." Though the defense claimed Dillon was lying for a reduced sentence, prosecutors confirmed that no deal had been made. In fact, Dillon had volunteered the information after watching a news segment about the reopened case. The defense tried to call this hearsay, but combined with the financial records, fingerprint evidence, and behavioral history, it painted a damning picture. Perhaps one of the most emotionally charged testimonies came from the behavioral psychologist, Dr. Renee Maddox, who had studied the case file for over a year. This was a textbook coercive control relationship. Dr. Maddox said she had been broken down, emotionally cornered. She didn't disappear, she was silenced. Her expert opinion gave jurors context for why Teresa hadn't simply walked away, as the defense repeatedly suggested. After 3 weeks of trial and over 40 witnesses, the jury deliberated for just 6 hours. Guilty, second-degree murder, financial exploitation, tampering with evidence. Sanfratello showed no emotion as the verdict was read, but in the back of the courtroom, Teresa's younger sister clutched a locket containing her photo, tears running down her face. After 36 years, justice had finally spoken. Please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support allows us to keep uncovering and telling the stories that others have forgotten. When the jury returned after 4 days of deliberation, the courtroom sat in tense silence. Joseph Sanfratello, now 69, sat impassively as the foreperson read the verdict. Guilty of second-degree murder. A wave of emotion swept through the courtroom. Teresa's surviving family members broke into tears. For them, it wasn't just a verdict, it was validation. After more than 35 years, someone was finally being held accountable. Yet for many, the victory felt hollow. Teresa's body had never been found. There would be no proper burial, no resting place, just a memory, and a gaping hole that could never fully close. Sanfratello was sentenced to 35 years to life, a significant sentence given his age, effectively a life term. Despite the conviction, the case left many haunting questions. Where is Teresa's body? Did Joseph act alone? Were there others who helped conceal her disappearance? One detail that lingered in investigators' minds was a phone call received by Teresa's sister in the days after her disappearance. The voice on the line, muffled and distorted, claimed Teresa had run away. The call was traced to a payphone in Ohio, the place Sanfratello had lived briefly in the 1990s. Was it him, or someone trying to divert suspicion? The cold case unit, even after the trial, continued to investigate leads. In 2019, a tipster came forward claiming they had seen a man burying something in a wooded area outside Monroeville, Pennsylvania in 1983, but excavation yielded no results. Teresa Peroni's case sparked a broader movement in Allegheny County. In 2020, a bill was introduced in the Pennsylvania legislature inspired by her case, Teresa's Law, aimed at improving how missing persons cases are handled, particularly those involving domestic abuse or intimate partner violence. The bill proposed mandatory revisiting of cold cases every 10 years, updated forensic reviews, and psychological profiling of high-risk partners. Her story was also picked up by victim advocacy groups across the state, and a memorial fund was created in her name, supporting survivors of domestic violence and helping fund cold case investigations. This case reminds us that justice, though delayed, is still possible. If you believe cold cases should remain a priority for law enforcement, let us know in the comments and hit the notification bell to stay updated. Peroni may be legally closed, but emotionally and ethically, it still reverberates. The tragedy of her disappearance, the years of unanswered questions, and the perseverance of investigators and loved ones all underscore the value of never giving up. As of 2025, Joseph Sanfratello remains in custody at SCI Forest, serving his sentence with no possibility of parole for the next 28 years. But the search for Teresa's remains continues. Her story, preserved in court documents and news archives, and now in the heart of all who heard it, serves as a solemn reminder. Truth doesn't fade with time. It waits. Thank you for watching this intriguing case on the 1983 disappearance, an indictment of Teresa Peroni. If this case moved you, share with others. The more eyes on these stories, the more likely justice will be served, even decades later. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep seeking the truth.